There we go. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. Normally, I would be here with, as you can see on the picture, you could see or my co-host Guy, but unfortunately, Guy is still on vacation. I guess the Dutch might have a lot of vacation. And so I invited Lynnaire Johnson from New Zealand onto the session today to talk about LinkedIn and what we are seeing on LinkedIn. Obviously, the show has been paused for 2 weeks because both Guy and I were on vacation. Um, but we're back and full strength. And today, welcome, Lynnaire.
Kia ora from New Zealand. Mick, thank you so much for having me. I can't believe that it's been a year since you and I last did this when Guy was on holiday last time. He went to Italy then, I believe. Is that where he's gone this year?
No, he was in Portugal, I think, too.
Okay. Well, it's
Uh,
nice to be back. A year it's taken, but it's nice to be back.
Well, if you want, you can come more often. If you want to, I'm more than willing to convince Guy to do the show with 3 people as opposed to 2. So no problem with that.
Well, very happy to.
Yeah, I mean, it. I've missed my this episodes or doing these episodes for the last 2 weeks, but it was basically impossible time wise to realistically do them, even with a co-host that's somewhere else. I mean, if there's 9 hours difference, it's a little bit tough. To do these shows, but we're back and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing on LinkedIn. Before we started this chat, you mentioned a couple of things that were interesting to talk about. Maybe you can hit it off with what's the most important thing that you've noticed in the last few weeks.
The most important thing I've noticed in the last few weeks, Mick, is how few changes there've been on LinkedIn, how few updates and new features. The second most important thing is how engagement and reach has dropped off. Now, I look at the posts of the people in my Linkability members group all the time,
Mhm.
and I often come across posts that have been up for 12 hours a day with a few likes and absolutely no comments. And so while my own numbers aren't reflecting that, I am seeing that on other people's posts. So I'm wondering whether you're seeing another drop in reach up there in Europe.
And in all honesty, I must admit that the reach for me has been to stable to sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. However, that being said, and this is also my experience from the last 2 weeks, I planned all my posts on LinkedIn, and I know when I plan posts on LinkedIn, reach is down.
Hmm. Yeah.
Especially if it's more than, if you plan a post now and again, it doesn't do anything. But in this case, it was like 2 full weeks of planned posts to post them at the right time for what I think. And the reach there was or is lower than if I would have posted it real life and then probably babysit the post a little better and more, so that the engagement would be higher up there. I think to me that is the reason why. But in all honesty, I haven't really seen a drop in reach as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I haven't either. I mean, it's down a little in the last 3 months, I think 12%. And it's certainly not as bad as the drop in the first 3 months of the
Right.
year. But it is interesting that you saw that with scheduled posts. But I am wondering whether that was because you weren't around those posts,
Yep.
putting engagement on other people's posts. So on the last of these events in English, you were talking about the fact that you had done a huge number of comments. I think the number was astronomical. And I'm wondering whether, because you weren't doing that, whether that might have impacted reach. Because, I mean, that does seem to be what people are saying. You have to comment now.
Yeah, and I think the number that I don't think it's astronomical. I guess the thing is I do about 20 comments a day. That's what I kind of
Okay.
average,
Mm-hmm.
of which I would say half are on comments that get onto my posts,
Ah, okay.
and
Yes.
then the other 10, if we go on the basis of 20, the other 10 are on posts from other people that I comment on. But there's people out there that do 400 or 500 comments a day.
How have they got the time? I know how they've got the time. They're using either AI or automation.
Well, yeah, it is. In the recent days, I've come across a bunch of AI tools that actually don't consider them bad, but I mean they can speed up the way that you comment. I mean, one of the tools, and Liam Darmody, that you probably know,
Mm-hmm.
discovered a nice little tool where you can actually voice command your comments. So you
That
speak your
sounds
comment,
cool. I like that idea.
and his point is that A, it takes less time to comment, and B, it sounds like him because he's speaking.
Mm. So
And
he dictates it. Am I right?
it's kind of like a dictation tool,
Mm-hmm.
but for comments. It's kind of an interesting little tool. I've put it on my laptop, and I'm trying it out. I mean, it doesn't hurt. And yeah, I mean, if you do that, your number of comments per minute, per hour, whatever you want to call it, can go greatly up. I mean, it's easy to score, in a half hour to score 30, 40 comments.
Yes, that would make sense. And I'm all over it being easier to do because let's face it,
Mhm.
these are very manual tasks, but you want it to be yourself. So if there's a way that you can dictate it and then it come out accurately
Yep.
on these comment as a comment, I think that's a really good compromise because it's coming from you. It's not AI
But
generated. You're just using a tool to help you.
yeah. On the other side of life, I've also come across a bunch of, and I think I will write a little lengthier report on that in the summer months. I've come across a bunch of AI tools that do comments. Some are better than others, and I'm staying away from the whole automation stuff. It's just,
Mm.
I mean, I've seen some decent ones. I've seen some very bad ones. But the idea with that is if you comment, you always need to adapt the comment to your wording, your style, and whatever have you, because otherwise it's no good.
Mm. Well, that would make sense to me. And, I think that attitudes towards AI have changed over
True.
recent months, whereas everybody was looking down their noses at
Yep.
it and, not very happy with it at all and didn't like the idea that people were using it. And I think that has changed and people are much more used to using it themselves, so therefore have a higher opinion of it. But a little earlier today, before we came on, I was having a look at LinkedIn's own AI because for a long time I thought it was absolute rubbish, and I
Yep.
have said so on many occasions. And so I thought, well, heavens, it's a bit of time since I checked this last. I'll have another look at it. Well,
Mhm.
I am very sorry to say that it is no better, either for messaging or for writing your about section. It's just shocking. And I don't understand
I do.
why LinkedIn allows this to happen.
Well, I think I do, because
Oh, okay.
my thought is the following: LinkedIn is using, in my opinion, an older version of the AI engines that they integrate into the LinkedIn system. So let me put it differently: LinkedIn is using ChatGPT 3.5 instead of 4.0.
Oh, goodness. I think they're using ChatGPT 1.0 the
Yeah,
way they
whatever the number is. But the reason for that is that LinkedIn doesn't want to bring out something that isn't really stable and tested within LinkedIn. So, as a big software corporation, they kind of go with what is stable and has been stabilized for a while. And if they want to upgrade, that will take a lot of time. So since I come out of the computer industry anyway, this is what I understand would be the case. It's they are working on a older or with an older version of that engine, which then doesn't really do the job. And I think in terms of upgrading, it's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and they're always asking themselves, is this worth it? Because they also know probably that most people, like, that use AI are going to go to the newer engines, the co-pilots, the chat GPTs, the perplexities of this world, which are up to date, while they are still running with somewhat of an older version.
They've missed the boat, really, haven't they, on that one, in that case, because the longer they leave it, the harder it is to catch up with that.
True, but if they're going to cancel it, nobody's going to be unhappy about it.
No, I certainly won't. I don't see the point of it. And I know that it's a premium feature, and I'm very happy to pay for premium because I think there are so many good features with it now, but that is not one of them.
Yeah, it's true. Although I do, when I look at Sales Navigator, and when you have send a message there using AI, I kind of was surprised that it was better than I thought it was going to be. It's not good, but at least it's better than I thought it was going to be.
So are you saying then that Sales Navigator's AI is better than the basic LinkedIn AI that premium members like me are seeing?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. So it comes back to the money again, doesn't it? And
well,
whether or not
yeah, and it's also there's different teams on it, so different teams might use different things. But what I've seen in Sales Navigator with send a message using Lead IQ, obviously you still have to do all the tweaking, but I found that it was better than I kind of thought it would be.
Well, that raises an interesting point, Mick, and this is a bit off LinkedIn, to be fair, but I asked AI the other day if it would help me to create an engagement strategy for members of my Linkability community. Right. And I gave it all the options to ask me questions, took the whole thing through, came up with a really good prompt. I thought it was going to work really well until I ran the prompt with a likely scenario, and it came back with a lot of information that was incorrect, out of date, and people like you and I simply would not recommend. And what that told me was that AI has been trained with information about LinkedIn that is not current best practice. It is not the kind of information that we would be sharing or suggestions and recommendations that we would be making. And I think that's going to become a problem further down the track, not just with LinkedIn either.
No, but the thing is, AI is being trained on data from the past. So everything that it can find, it will find and integrate into, AI is not judging whether it's right, up to date, modern, whatever. AI is just learning from what happened in the past, and I'll try and figure out what the future should be.
Yes, but my point, I think, is that if it's been trained on wrong information, then that is just going to be continually more widely distributed because that's what it's been trained on. So yes, it might be old, but it's still out, but it's still incorrect.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, and I'm going to be very nasty to some of the colleagues. I'm not going to put any names on there, but I mean, there are still people out there that train other people to use LinkedIn in a completely incorrect way. I mean, how many people are still doing or training people on putting a link that you have in a post in the first comment, for example, which we all know is not done.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Still, and it's done by real people that stand in front of a group of students, if I can call them that way. So there's lots of practices that people in real life tell to other people, which is kind of like the same thing that you explained with AI. I mean, I come across people where I'm going like, I mean, for me, the biggest is like, one of the big things is that a lot of trainers are beginning to say, never use or don't use hashtags anymore, which is completely wrong. You should always use 3 hashtags.
Well, you and I might have to differ on that one, Nick, because I don't use hashtags at all,
Okay.
except when I want it to show up in my URL.
Oh,
That's when I would use
yeah, but
a
that's just
hashtag.
the thing is you don't use the hashtags for LinkedIn. You use the
No.
hashtags as part of your URL that gets indexed by Google, which means your post might be actually found back in Google rather than in LinkedIn.
That's very true. Now, can I go back to something that you just said a moment ago about putting links into the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
comment? Now,
yeah.
you and I are both up to date with current best practice. So we know that the latest information is that we should be putting not one, not two, but three links into posts if we are using them. So, my question to you is,
Mhm.
are you doing that? And have you seen any positive or negatives around doing that?
In all honesty, whenever, I mean, my strategy is the following, and until proven wrong, I'll continue to do this. And is if you have one link, put it in your post. Don't bother putting it somewhere else in the comments. Put it in your post. Now, putting two and three, from what I feel, is still a negative element rather than a positive element. So I would say don't put two or three posts in your links. Sorry, don't put two or three links in your post. I haven't done any serious testing so far, but
Neither have I, but
in
I'm
all honesty, I
trying it.
think why would you want to put three links in? um, I mean,
I'll
they've got
tell
to
you
be
why I'm doing it. I'm
okay.
doing it as extra resources. So if I'm talking about, say, a particular thing like video on LinkedIn, and I know that I've got resources elsewhere, so I've got a YouTube video on it,
Yep.
or I've done
Okay.
an article about it, or another post about it, then I can add those in as three resources, which is what I'm calling them, additional resources at the bottom
Okay.
of my post,
Okay.
and putting those links in there. Now, I don't know at this point, because I've not done serious testing either, whether that's a good idea or not. But I am quite pleased about the fact that there seems to be an opening for that. And if it turns out to really not be a good thing, well, I'll just drop it, like other
Mhm.
things that haven't worked on LinkedIn in the past. But
Like I
I'm
said.
giving that a bit of a good go at the moment, and I'm putting that on most of my posts.
Okay. Like I said, I haven't done any serious testing. I know in the past when you put two links or more in, you were actually punished in terms of reach rather than benefited from what I understand people are talking about. The other thing is obviously they have to be relevant links, otherwise
Yes.
people will not click on the links. So I think it's if it's my opinion is always if it has to be in your post, if the flow of the post asks for two or three links, why not put them in? And if it works better, it's great. If it doesn't work better, well, you haven't lost anything.
Talking about losing things, you mentioned in your Belgian LinkedIn monitor
Yep.
at the beginning of the month about the web link in profile intros. Now, that's the one where you can put the display text. So you can write a call to action and then
Yep.
have the link hiding behind that.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people have said that this has disappeared for them. I still have mine. I'm not touching it. Mick, I'm not touching it at all anytime to make any changes in case I lose it. But
Yep.
have you lost yours?
Well, the thing is, I can't. I recently changed from that type to the button,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was gone for me anyway. But I can't add it anymore. So there's no more way to add it. So the answer to your question is yes, I've lost it.
Okay, because I'd lost it before and then I managed to get it back again, do not know how. And so
Mm,
I've still got both. But as I say, I'm not entirely certain how long that is going to last, because that does seem to be something that people are reporting as having disappeared. And something else that I just saw today, and I think it was Beth Granger who reported this, and John reported it on his latest roundup, John Asperian, is that the hard return that you could add into your headline so that you had an emoji on a separate line, or just a couple of words on a separate line in your headline on the app had disappeared. Well, I checked mine today, and it's still working for me. So do you have you got your headline on the app formatted in that way?
No, I don't, but I've seen it, and I've never formatted any headline because I have so much text that formatting would actually kill the layout of the whole thing.
It's pretty tough, isn't it? I
Yeah,
agree. I'm always within 2 or 3 characters of the maximum.
Yeah, so the longer it gets, the more difficult it is to put some formatting in it. So I saw that message from John and
Beth, was it Beth?
yeah, Beth. I saw that message too. Like I said, it's only a few people that are probably impacted by that who, that actually use that functionality. I wasn't one of them, so.
Okay. Something else I came across the other day was when I was reaching out to connect to somebody new, it asked me whether I would like to ask them to verify their profile. Now, I'd not seen that before. Have you come across that?
I haven't come across it. I've seen it, and I've gotten something else than what you got. Also, when I got a connection request from somebody, it says, do you trust this person? Yes or no, before you proceed to accept or ignore the request, which is kind of an interesting road to go. You get a request from somebody, and you kind of like, you press the accept button, but instead of getting accepted, or that person accepted, you get a message that pops up saying, are you really sure you want to accept this person?
Well, that's weird. I don't understand why they would do that, because that puts doubt in your mind, doesn't it?
Here's my logic, is that this person might have gotten reported by other people as being a spammer or scammer, or whatever, whatever that you can get reported for. And then because of that, that message pops up, so that after a while, it probably can disappear if people accept you all the time and they say that they trust you. But I think that would be my explanation. It doesn't have the verification. That's one thing. And I've seen the message on how it's visually shown, but I haven't had it on my because I checked it this morning, believe it or not, if I could do this on somebody's profile, saying, by the way, shouldn't you get your profile verified?
Yes. Well, best we don't talk about profile verification, Mick, because you know how I feel about that, and the discriminatory nature of it, as far as I'm concerned, for women. So shall we move on to something more positive?
I'm going to continue on the verification vein briefly, but in another note is that I've noticed that LinkedIn CEO Ryan Roslansky is now making a lot of videos on LinkedIn. And I think for everybody who's listening in or listening to the replay, go and check the profile of Ryan Roslansky, the CEO of LinkedIn, and start following him, because he's doing a lot of videos. One of them is very forcefully push verification, by the way. He's also announcing new features in another video. It's kind of an interesting approach LinkedIn is taking, and I find it refreshing.
Well, I like the idea that the head of LinkedIn is actually doing LinkedIn videos. Don't you think that is walking the talk?
Yeah, and the way he does it is he's very relaxed doing it.
Yes.
It's a video. Every video is about a minute long or so. It's not a long video. It's very short, but it's very relaxed. There's this. Every time I look at a video from him, I have the urge to comment. There's always enough there to provide comment in one way or another, positive and or negative, or critical. But there's a lot of positive stuff coming out of that.
Well, that's interesting because I think that he is opening himself up then to probably criticism, but it'll be I haven't looked at it, so I'm going to, after we're finished, go and have a look at some of these videos, particularly to see what he's talking about in terms of new features, because we all know that LinkedIn is notoriously non-transparent about those, and so
Yeah.
if he's talking about what's coming up or new things, I think that's a really good positive move, Mac.
Don't expect too much from the new things. It's really little changes. I mean, the video talks about changing the LinkedIn premium logo to something else, which is it's kind of funny, but I mean, it's like, okay, I can see the fun in there. And then at the end, he says, well, by the way, I'm here to talk about 3 new features, which I think 2 of them we both know about. I don't remember which they were. I didn't memorize them, but there was one in there that I said, huh? What is this? I'm gonna have to try this out. But that was kind of an interesting approach, which also brings me back to my trip. When I was in the US, I changed my location to the US, and in my home feed, there was an interesting element to with video suggestions. I mean, I got video suggestions on certain topics, like why it's good to work with your bestie, and you got like 5 videos of people talking about working with your bestie, or my work day from 9 to 5, and you got like 5 video suggestions. I thought that concept was really good. I mean, I've been complaining about the relevance. I thought the relevance to this one was better, and it was all on point. I mean, when you looked at my office from 9 to 5, it was all about my office to 9 to 5. You know what subject you were digging into.
Do you think that's part of LinkedIn News, that was one of the topics, or those topics are part of what they're suggesting people post videos about? Because that's what's happening down here. The LinkedIn News, Australia, New Zealand, puts out a weekly list of topics that we can then put videos up about, which they then aggregate and put into a post, or sometimes I'll do them individually. And the topics are very similar. Like one of the topics this week was the mid-year slump that people go through. Well, of course, it's winter down here when you're near the bottom of the world, next stop Antarctica. So I get that, but I'm interested to think whether or not that might be part of that whole process, so that people are getting greater visibility through those videos. Do you think that's possible?
It is a possibility. Now, the other thing is that it was only US type of people who were featured in those videos, so nobody that I knew. But at least, like I said, it's about the topic, and I thought that was the right thing to happen.
Yes, no, that would make sense. Now, I know that a lot of people are seeing headings like videos for you or trending videos in their feeds, and I'm not seeing that. When they removed the video button from the app for me, all of that stuff disappeared. And now I've got only the videos that show up like they would normally in the feed.
Because now I'm kind of wondering how, because yesterday I looked at my home feed on my mobile and it was still there. So I still had those headings with the categories. So I'm kind of wondering how long I will continue to see it now that I'm no longer based in the US. And I think I might be out of luck as of today, because I'm back to my normal feed. There's no more suggested videos on those topics for me. So
that's interesting. But isn't it fascinating how in different parts of the world we're seeing all of this differently?
Yeah, I mean, this is, to me, has fascinated me enormously, is that I wouldn't want to be in customer service or in support because nobody has the same version of LinkedIn anymore.
No, well, that is exactly true. That would be a very difficult job indeed. I agree, and very
I
frustrating.
mean, if somebody calls in and says, I have a problem there, I mean, how do you figure out what of the new functions you already have or features you have and which ones you don't have? The combinations and the way they're being rolled out make it
Mm,
such a chaos, to use
mm.
that expression, of what is the combination of all the different elements that I get to see today in my LinkedIn environment, and how how can they in a very simple way still support you.
Very difficult, and I'm glad it's not my job, Mick.
No, 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 no. All right, and another thing that and this is something that came up. Somebody from Belgium, Bruno, kind of found that some of the company page elements in the free version, like the tenure of people, some statistics about the employees of a certain company, has now moved to premium, which kind of like
Ah.
is a bit of a bummer, I guess.
Yeah, I tried premium when it first came out for
Yep.
about 6 months, and I did not see the value in it in terms of the
No,
cost of
no.
it at all. I gave it a really good shot. I used
Mhm.
all the features that they offered, and really it didn't do anything to improve reach on posts or inquiries, leads, nothing changed. My page looked great, give you
Mhm.
that, but it didn't make any other material difference. And it simply, for a small business like mine, it simply was not worth the money. But I get that for bigger companies, that doesn't matter. The monthly cost doesn't mean a thing. And it's
Well,
definitely worth doing it for that.
the, the way I see it is that LinkedIn is going to use this premium account to as leverage in negotiations about other subscriptions like Recruiter or Sales Navigator for companies, and throwing that in at the end as a bonus for anybody who buys a Sales Navigator slash recruitment subscription, or even a LinkedIn Learning subscription. I think they're going to sell very few of them. I think there's just going to be like a bit of leverage. We need to give you something more to convince you to buy the expensive Sales Navigator or the expensive Recruiter. I think that's the way it's going to work.
Well, they're certainly making it harder and harder to use LinkedIn for free with any kind of
Yeah,
competency at all,
true.
in terms of the features that they're now making us all pay for. I
Mhm.
absolutely get that. But, to be fair, Mick, it's been a long time coming.
Yep.
When you think about Facebook, they made business pages untenable unless you paid for them back in 2017. And so
Yeah.
it's taken LinkedIn a long time to catch up to that kind of business model, I think.
Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, LinkedIn is I mean, they're a money machine these days.
Mm.
And I think when they hit the 1 billion mark in what was it, 23, that was the point where they shifted from, all right, we want to do stuff so that we can get more members, to we want to do stuff that makes us money.
Yes. And that's understandable. They're a business. I absolutely get that.
Yep.
And we've always known that their
Mhm.
so-called alleged policy of members first has not exactly been how it's played out. But some of the things that they are doing
Mhm.
now in terms of making it more difficult for people to send
Completely agree.
personalized invites on the free account, I don't see the benefit of that really, because you wouldn't go to premium just for that. I
No.
don't think. So I think it's a real shame, some of these moves, but I absolutely understand why they're doing it, and it's of course their right to do it.
They're in control, and we are the product.
Yes, we are indeed. I don't know how I feel about being called a product, Mick, to
No,
be
but
fair
I'm
to
just
you.
in reality. I mean, I hear a lot of people complain and say, "Oh, they're not customer centric." No, no, we're not the customers. We are the product. They're selling
Mm,
us to other people.
that's very true. Yeah, interesting.
All right, it's 9:33 here, so we've passed our little half-hour talk, and I think both of us still have a lot of stuff on our little lists that we wanted to talk about, but we'll keep that for another time.
That sounds fabulous, and hopefully it won't be 12 months before
Oh
I'm back
no,
again
no, no,
on
no,
your
no,
show,
no.
Mick.
I guarantee you that it will not be 12 months before we do this again. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And
It's a
you know
pleasure to
what?
be on your show. Thank you for having me.
It's, Guy and I go to John's Uplift Live conference every year, right? And after
Yes,
the day after the conference, we do a LinkedIn Live from Birmingham, right?
yes.
Where the show is actually taking place. So the good news is, and you kind of know already a little bit about that, is that I will be in New Zealand in November next
Yes,
year. And what we
yes.
could do is we could do a live from there.
You have got that as a booking. Put it in your calendar and let's start sending out invites now. I'm on
Okay.
for that. Why don't we do it from somewhere really cool like Queenstown, overlooking one of the fabulous lakes in the mountains? Oh my goodness me. This will be so exciting. I can't wait.
Well, neither can I. It's still a long ways away, but like I said, I will be visiting my kids in New Zealand in November next year, and maybe I probably not before that because they need to find their own space and stuff and settle down and whatever they have to do there. But I'll definitely be there. I'm sure we'll meet up and let's put it in our diary that we do a LinkedIn Live from New Zealand. I'll convince maybe Guy to join us from Europe then.
That would be fabulous. I think that would be really, really cool. I'd really enjoy that. That was the one thing I regretted when Mark Williams came to New Zealand, not last year, the year before, that we
Yep.
didn't get a chance to do that. I did get to meet him, but we didn't get to do a live event. But if you and I can do one, won't that be fabulous? I think that's amazing. So bring it on.
All right. All right. Well, it's late for you, so I guess we'll close the session for today. I look forward to seeing you in the room in the next sessions. In 2 weeks' time, we'll do an English one again. Next week, it should be in Dutch. And yeah, in the meantime, let's keep talking to each other via LinkedIn.
That'd be amazing. Thanks so much, Mick. And thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate those who came along and had a listen. Bye
Same.
for now.